Good morning, afternoon, and evening. Welcome back to the Liberal Artist Podcast. I am Bodio Papula, and with me I have Kaylie Horowitz.
You like keys?
Oh my god.
I had to, Gibby is not here with us today,
No.
so I had to try to do the typical themed introduction first statement, and I just don't have any brain function today. So, you like keys?
You don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of pop culture that predates you by about 20 years. In the same way that Gibby does.
No, I am a very contemporary kind of pop culture consumer. There's stuff that I retain, but like more than anything, it is if I have not found a way to reference this or continually like embody the language in my daily conversations, like
Right.
Vine kind of speak, if it just doesn't relate to anything I'm doing, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist after a
Right.
certain point.
I'm that way,
So-
but I'm like not on social media. So people will say shit. I'm like, what? Like, real talk, WAP. I found out what that stood for maybe 5 weeks ago. Like, I just learned it. I was like, oh, dude, that's hilarious. Really?
Yeah, it's waffles and pancakes.
Waffles and pancakes, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wholesome Waffle House
Waffle-
waffles with some good old IHOP
Just
pancakes.
meet up with Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. You hit up the old Wahoo, and y'all have a good old time.
Exactly.
Kaylie, how's your week been so far, man? Like, what you been
Oh
up to?
my god. My week has been not too shabby, exhausting. I've been up till midnight every night. One night of my own choice. The rest out of spite and drive to submit papers to conferences.
Right.
So that
On top of doing the professional student game,
yeah.
you're also in like 6 shows or some shit.
What is on my calendar right now? Let's time to dissect the pie chart
Ooh.
of where does my time go.
Ooh.
I am full-time in grad school.
Yep.
I am working part-time for our IT office and
Yep.
communication.
Money moves.
I am the assistant director right now for our production of 12th Night, which is very exciting.
Executive move.
And yeah, I'm also in the midst of trying to ride the grad school game and kind of buff my stats and appearance for any MFA programs that I apply to, because I would like to
Education.
teach at some point. It's you gotta write research and submit it for conferences or publication. And me being a dumbass is like, okay, I'll do that, but I'm going to talk to you about TikTok. And that's actually what I get to do in April. I get to go to a conference and talk about TikTok as intereffective microdrama, which we can get into later on another date. But it's exciting. I just get to show a whole like conference panel of real professional adults in the performing arts fields. And I get to just be like, look at these memes. Aren't they cool? Aren't they exciting?
We got Kaylie Horowitz, social media analyst. Meanwhile, I've been here playing Elden Ring nonstop for the last
Which is
week.
also it's also a time-consuming endeavor.
Oh my god, you were making fun of me last night because I'm like 50 hours into the game at this point when we're recording this. Yes, I know I have a problem. Shut up, I'm not going to do anything about it.
You're still a working adult. You're still going to your job.
Sometimes, but
Yeah.
but
Some days.
I've like I said, I'm 50 hours in. I've done so much stuff. And I'm sitting there on a voice chat with Kaylie and another one of our friends, and I get another map. I reveal a part of a map, and I zoom out, and there's still like the top quarter of the map is grayed out in fog of war, and I just like very defeatedly, I'm like, oh my god, there's so much left. Kaylie just laughs at me the entire time, not being a homie, not feeling for me. She's just like, look at you. Look what you've done to yourself.
Pathetic. No. I think that's, to be fair, me just sort of thinking like I also don't know how this game, because I've never played a FromSoft game, but I don't know if it's kind of like Breath of the Wild where you can just fucking go anywhere you want, or if you have to defeat certain bosses, challenges to get to new areas of the map.
Yes to
because
both.
that's always the first thing I do in those kind of games is like, oh, if I can't beat anything after a couple tries, I'm just gonna go run around and
that's the appeal
everything.
of it, right? You get to a boss and you're like, man, this guy's whipping my ass. What's going on over there?
Right, like time to go take a very long detour so I don't have to think about fighting that boss again. And let's just go explore the far corners of everything and find some loot.
But then you come back or you go and find a different boss who may or may not be harder. You beat that guy and then a meteor shower happens and they're like, by the way, there's a whole map underground. So go take care of that. You're like, what do you mean?
Where am I?
What has been your favorite boss so far? Because I watched streaming for charity the other day, and they were fighting a giant lobster. And I think currently that's one of my favorite bosses.
There
in the
are
game.
many crabs.
Yes.
And they haunt my dreams.
Return to crab.
Return to crab. I don't know. My favorite
Carcinization
boss.
is the only way.
Because you gotta understand.
It's okay if you need to marinate on this. We'll come back to it next episode.
There's a lot of fucking bosses in this game, y'all.
Oh, sure. Yeah, the whole game is Boss Battle Simulator, the game.
Yes. I will say this isn't my favorite boss, but here's a story of what happened to me in Elden Ring, and we'll get to our main topic.
What had happened was...
So you go through, at one point, this whole College of Magic. The story of these games is very grim dark. George R.R. Martin helped write the initial narrative. So Game of Thrones, but like more things want to kill you. Think that.
Game of Thrones, but yeah, you've got even weirder monsters and sometimes samurai.
Yes, every once in a while.
Yeah, every once in a while.
So you're going through this school with a giant graveyard in the backyard, and there's zombies, and you're
it's your dissertations, right? That's the scariest part of the college.
But you're like, yeah, fuck it, whatever. You get to the top of the school, top of the tower, and you have to fight this lady who's like the queen, the headmaster, and she's in this golden orb, and she kind of has like, she spawns in all these torsos of like little fucked up people, and they toss like books at you and globes. Some of them breathe fire, and every once in a while, some of them will make chandeliers fall on top of you, like from the ceiling.
That's academia in a nutshell.
As it happens, right? As you're running around,
as you do.
The main lady is in this giant glowing orb, and she's invincible. And you're like, oh shit, how do I get her out of there? And then you notice some of her little half students are glowing. So it's like, okay, I go kill those half students specifically. She falls on the ground. I bully her for a hot second, wash, rinse, and repeat. Right.
Punch her. Just
right. And then that works out. You beat her. And you're like, yeah, I did it. Then she says, okay, now I'm on the real shit. Where she transports you to a different dimension, and she starts shooting energy beams at you. She summons a tiny moon that explodes. She's doing all this stuff to you, and she also summons like dragons and wolf knights and trolls to like try to stop you and all this stuff. And I was feeling awesome doing this because not very often do you one-shot a boss. Not very often do you walk up to a big bad and say, hey, yo, what's up? My name's Bodio. This is my stick. Die, please. And I got this lady. Everything she threw at me, every mix-up, I was like, bet I got it.
Nice.
Where at the very end, she has a little bit of health. I have no heals left. I'm about to die. I say, fuck it. I get greedy. I go in. I smack her with my sword. She dies, but the game freaks out because as she was dying, she summoned a giant troll, which should have canceled because she died, but it didn't.
Right.
And the troll hit me, double KO. Right?
No.
So usually when you die, you collect these things called runes, which is your currency and also how you level up. And when you die, the runes drop wherever you died. and you can go back, pick them up. But if you die before you pick them up, they go away. That's the sense of urgency you get. My runes dropped in a different dimension. So I just couldn't get those back.
No! Oh
so on top
God.
of all the runes I had gathered getting to this lady, and all the runes I got from defeating this lady, like 100,000 runes, $100,000 just in the moon dimension, and I can't get them back. And I'm sitting there screaming at this lady who is like, why did you do this to me? I beat you. I gamed. I was the one.
And yet, somehow, it still feels like an allegory about attending higher education. My runes are in the moon dimension and I will never see them again. I already gave you 100,000 runes.
Just sitting there in an abandoned study hall with my giant sword, like, I'll never recover from this financially.
I'll never financially recover from this. Oh, no. Speaking of weird, trippy-ass dimensions that you get sent to willy-nilly.
God. So, much to my suffering and chagrin,
we joked about this last episode.
We did. Gibby, hits us up and says, hey, I won't be able to record this week. You guys go ahead and, do the show without me, keep the train rolling. I'm like, great, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm lying in bed at like 6 a.m. thinking, oh God, it's me and Kaylee. What can we talk about? We're going to talk about Kingdom Hearts, aren't we?
And to be fair, I was racking my brain the whole, like the first day we were sort of like, what are we going to talk about? Up until that conversation, I was kind of racking my brain similarly. Like, what are Bo and I on the same page of that, like, we can talk about, and maybe we don't have to torture Gibby to, like, also be subjected to the same content. And as much as I tried to think of other things, I'm like, well, we could talk about this. We could talk about this. We could talk about this. It's just Kingdom Hearts.
It's just Kingdom. It's always Kingdom Hearts.
And there's something about it. Part of why I think I became more interested in, like, yeah, okay, let's talk about Kingdom Hearts, is because for someone else who's also quite familiar with the franchise through better for worse. Yeah, mostly worse, but sometimes memeably good. wanted to kind of look at it from that perspective of what is it about this fucking game series,
Right. For people who are normal and have a real life.
Or who have, like, ignored it for 20 years. Literally 20 years of this stuff.
20 fucking years. Kingdom Hearts is a video game that created the unholy union between the Japanese role-playing game series Final Fantasy and Disney movies. That's the elevator pitch.
Even to this day, like, it's not just a niche, like, oh yeah, it was super popular in the early 2000s and then just petered out of existence, and, like, only a small group of people kind of still talk about it, like some of the early Final Fantasy games. The new starter Pokemon for Scarlet and Violet just dropped, and immediately people looked at that duckling and went, that's just Donald Duck. This whole party is just Sora, Donald, and Goofy.
Angry.
And, like, the whole rest of Twitter went, yeah, you're right.
Right.
So it still has staying power.
This game has some weird influence on, at this point, 2 generations of people.
Yeah.
Why is the question?
Why, God? Why?
Why this one?
Why?
Because there's other crossover games.
There's
the
a
biggest
lot.
like draw of Kingdom Hearts was exactly that. Like, it's this merge between Final Fantasy playstyle and Disney properties.
Mm-hmm.
And in, like, 2000s culture was primed for crossover mentality.
Yes.
It's obviously when the Marvel Cinematic Universe started piecing itself together. It's when in video game realm we were really leaning into Sonic and Mario at the Olympics
Right.
and just the Super Smash Brothers franchise as a whole, and Nicktoons, like Nickelodeon would put out games where there were crossovers like Volcano Island and all of these other like kart racers.
And even before that, in the video game space, there was the Marvel versus Capcom fighting game series. And even in like film space, we were all about like parody movies. We can go as far back as like Mel Brooks, Spaceballs, Robin Hood Men in Tights stuff. But even things like I had one in my head, but Austin Powers, that's what was in my head.
Yeah.
So the idea of taking properties and mashing them together or converting them isn't unusual, but there's something, this hurts my brain to say, there's something special about what Kingdom Hearts is and what Kingdom Hearts became that gave it, like, in spite of its plethora of faults, gave it like this extreme staying power and acceptance, right?
This was my first real like fandom. I got into like internet fandom culture from like rabbit holes of like, I read books and I went and like looked at people's like character, when this was a thing on YouTube, character text chat things that people would make in Windows Movie Maker,
Right.
with like the Percy Jackson characters. Somehow by rabbit holing through that, I landed in Kingdom Hearts music videos, like AMV style things.
A lot of the Linkin Park, Paramore.
Yes. So this was my like first real fandom kind of thing. And let me tell you, anybody, I still love it. I still am a sucker for like, God, it's cringy, but I do enjoy it. But anybody that tells you they love it wholly and completely and they find no faults, do not trust them.
Yeah, they have problems.
You are lying, or exactly there's something else going on.
Do we go through the story of Kingdom Hearts? It's been done to death.
Difficult. Yes, I 10 out of 10 would recommend from it was posted on Polygon channel, right?
Sure.
Or no. Brian David Gilbert's look into the hero's journey, quote unquote, using Kingdom Hearts games. It is one of my favorite. Whenever somebody asks me, like, what is Kingdom Hearts? I always direct them to that video, because we could try to sit here and explain that story to you. I don't think you want to hear that over a podcast. I think that could be a very special, separate episode where we were like completely tipsy and drunk trying to recount it.
That's gonna be a bonus episode. Bodio
that's an after hours episode.
A bonus episode we'll do is Bodio recounts Kingdom Hearts, the story, while I'm and you'll hear me get actively more aggravated and more frustrated.
The angrier you get, you have to take another shot.
God has cursed me for my hubris, and my work is never finished.
No lie, I've before we started recording this, I was trying to go through the story in my head, and I had gotten maybe halfway through, and an hour had passed, and I was, shit.
Yeah.
It's a trip. It's a bad trip. You will fall through the plot holes.
Yes.
There are no consistencies.
Nope.
But there is a reason for that, right?
In a way, I feel like, and this might be a separate thing that I video essay later on about, but I think there's an interesting argument to be made in contemporary gaming culture and the obsession with FNAF and how none of that story makes sense. I think there's a great argument to be made that it borrows from the way that Kingdom Hearts built itself as a franchise, in that we're not trying to answer all the questions in the detail fantasy lore. We don't care about that.
Here's the problem with Kingdom Hearts. So a little lore behind the like creation of Kingdom Hearts, or not the creation, but like the development of Kingdom Hearts. One of the big pitches that Square Enix, or I guess they're just Square now, and they have been for years, and I'm just stupid. One of the big pitches that Square did with Kingdom Hearts internally, the Final Fantasy franchise are all, for the most part, isolated stories. right?
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy 1 has nothing to do with Final Fantasy 2, has nothing to do with Final Fantasy 6 or 12 or 10 or whatever, right?
Like it was a rare occurrence that when they made Final Fantasy X,
they made 10-2.
They made X2, and people were like, "What?
Yeah,
what?"
And they explicitly said, "Yes, we're continuing the story, right?
We're going back."
Kingdom Hearts was their first foray into, hey, what if we told the same story across multiple games? And here we are 13 games later, and it's a fucking travesty.
Nomura, what is this? What did you do?
It's a mess. There's inconsistencies. Nothing makes sense every time. A guy becomes one thing, and then a guy through the same processes becomes a different thing, and a guy through the same processes becomes a third thing. But this time he can travel through time and possess other people and just fuck Nort everybody, just say Nort everybody. And you're like, what do you mean?
Norda boy. No, it is that TikTok audio that's just, I am crazy, but I am free. Is the way that Nomura subsequently made every game after the first two. And I count Chain of Memories as 2, not the second Kingdom Hearts, because between 1 and 2, you can kind of go, oh, okay, I see where we're going. Okay, all right, sure.
Of.
And then we go to 2, and it's that like, what the fuck is happening? You had me, and then you kind of lost.
And then you're gone. And then they're like, "Hey, here are the prequels," and you're like, "What's happening? What do you mean?
Really, what is happening?"
But we've drawn on enough. Kaylee, you kind of got into this. I want to attach to something you said. Kingdom Hearts was kind of like your gateway into other fandoms, right? Like, go a little deeper.
Because of I think it was because of that crossover nature. Something about already collectively not just using like your staple Disney characters like in games, because you already had like Epic Mickey had just come out in like 2008, something like that, 2010. It was a Wii game, but it was that, no, we've got an action adventure thing with like Mickey Mouse and like kind of Disney style. But no. It was something more special about the crossover of properties, about the different movies and like those characters all interacting with these other things, as well as the Final Fantasy characters, because you had characters across those games as well show up in this world, not just from one specific game. And I think that really set something off in fandom culture, who was already super into like, how can I put my OC into the Harry Potter universe and then also meet up with Sam and Dean Winchester. Like, Kingdom Hearts just sort of really embraced into that possibility because its entire premise was built on world travel.
So you got into Kingdom Hearts pretty late then, because
I did. I begged for a PlayStation 2 for Christmas when I was 13, and that was 2009. This game was already over and done with.
The first Kingdom Hearts came out in 2002.
Yeah, first one was 2002, and then
Kingdom Hearts 2 was 2006.
Yeah, so like I was pretty late to the party at this point. But that was my first like true console. I think we got the Wii a couple years like before that, but
that's a family console. Yeah.
It is. This was mine. This was my PlayStation 2. But the thing is that I was so curious about what this game was. Like, the first, like, clips of videos that I saw where it was the cutscenes that have, like, Mickey Mouse, like, running around with a key sword.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this?
Doing backflips like
Alice
Yoda.
in Wonderland. We're going to Alice in Wonderland. We're going to, like, all these other, like, some of my favorite movies. Like, what is going on here? You know, again, when YouTube was more of the Wild West, people would just put up the whole cutscenes, like, in a movie format.
Right.
And I watched through both games in that way, but then I was like, but I want to play these.
Yeah.
I also, because there was things missing in those cutscenes, like they did not encompass the whole story.
Right.
That I was like, I'm missing some pieces here. I need to play them now. And so, yeah, I started with 1, couldn't beat Ansem, but I knew what happened at the end. That, like, when I was 13, sort of like, screw it. I just want to move on to the next game. I'm done trying to fight this boss. I think I moved into the second one because at the time I did not have the PlayStation version of Chain of Memories. but I did have an emulator on my laptop so I could play the Game Boy version.
Yeah. I don't think it was out in America by then.
I don't think so. Like, that was one of the things that was kind of, there was a big barrier between what was available in Japan and what was available in the States, because the final mixes too weren't available in the States for a while. And I was very upset because I really liked the Christmas Town costumes. And we didn't have that in the American version. It was still the like Halloween Town ones, which are cute, but it's not like, but the Christmas Town spooky. This is the height of like, quote unquote, like not true emo, but like commercialized emo, LOL, random,
hot topic,
smudgy, exactly,
kids.
smudgy under eyeliner, hot topic culture. So like the Nightmare Before Christmas outfits in Kingdom Hearts held a very special place for many an angsty teen and tween.
Facts.
Wake me up inside. I can't wake up, wake me up inside. Save me, call my name and save me from the night. Wake me up with my blood to run. I can't wake up before I come undone. Save me from the nothing.
I got into it late, but I stuck with it. For anybody out there who remembers this on YouTube, Demix Time.
I don't.
Those little shorts, these were cosplayers from the UK that made this whole channel of like skits and sketches with the Organization 13 characters. They came to a con in Tampa and they were like my idols at the time.
Right.
I still have a bag that they all signed that's hanging up in my closet. And that was my first cosplay as a cosplay, not just a costume, was KH2 Kairi.
Okay.
And I roped two of my friends to go with me as Namine and Shion, who at the time we were like, who is this?
Yeah, this is a new
who this character is. We wouldn't for another 4 years.
If you're listening and confused by these names, yes, so are we.
Yes.
And we know what's happening.
And that is something that was entertaining but frustrating for the cosplay community, I think, was we're just using the same character assets and frames, and especially for the characters of the Organization 13 that are all wearing black cloaks. It's that like, who is this person? They're small, skinny, and they have their hood up the whole time. It could be 3 characters maybe, and then maybe a surprise 4th if it's just something out of nowhere. Which I don't know if we want to get into the story itself, but like...
No.
The main factions of this game kind of keep splintering ad infinitum in a way. I don't know. What were sort of your thoughts, like having kind of watched this franchise a little bit longer than I did, like when it started evolving into the PlayStation Portable and the Nintendo DS, and then there's a mobile game, like further leaving behind the PlayStation.
I was kind of around for like the very beginnings of this game, right?
Yeah.
I remember seeing the trailers for it back in like 2001 when I was in like elementary school. So this is 2002, so like Blockbuster, Movie Gallery, wherever your place, you're still like renting video games. Me and my parents and my brothers went to every rental place in town trying to find this game. But everywhere it was already like rented out. They were already out of them. And after like the 3rd or 4th store, I started crying because I wanted to play this game so bad. And my parents just broke down. They're like, fuck it, whatever. We'll just buy the game. So we ended up getting it.
The power of tears.
Yeah, the power of a 10-year-old bawling his eyes out. With Kingdom Hearts, yeah, I was there. I played the first one. I skipped the Game Boy one. Then I played the second one. And of course, I went back and like put hands on each one of them to varying degrees up until everything that's come out. The last like Kingdom Hearts 3 came out in 2018, so I haven't really touched it since Kingdom Hearts 3. That one left a bad taste in my mouth. But I'm very much so one of those people who is like, how weird people have a knowledge of the lore of Star Wars. I'm that with Kingdom Hearts up to a point. It's embarrassing how much I know about this game and how much is going on. It was kind of fascinating to see this extremely niche game in my eyes expand out. I think it speaks to the at least stateside, I can't really speak on like the world view, but at least stateside, I think the biggest factor of this was, go hang out with your favorite Disney characters, right?
Yeah.
Go help Aladdin in a bastardized version of his story. Go chill with Jack Skellington as he tries to terrifyingly manufacture a person. Monstro has eaten you and Pinocchio is kidnapped. Go do something about that. Right. Plus, you got like this very basic story of kid of destiny gets this thing and has to overcome trials and tribulations while hanging out with Donald and Goofy. Yeah. And that's just the first game. It gets a lot more complicated and a lot of things that I say get retconned, but whatever. I'm going to keep complaining about the story because I hate it.
No, if there's one thing that's like stupidly charming, but I also hate it so much, it gives me a headache, I think is the story of the games. There is an intentionality there of just, no, we won't make this easy.
See, I have a hard time thinking it's intentional.
Fair. No, I
just because, like we were saying,
I think it did get a little bit messy in the midst of like, let's go explore all these backstories. I think that's exactly when it started like digging into a hole.
I think it's messy because if you play Final Fantasy games, if you've ever played a Final Fantasy games, they're definitely the kind of games that start out, hey, you're a kid with a wooden sword, go save a cat from a tree. And by the end, it's, now you have a sword the size of a person's body. Go kill God.
Yeah.
When you try to have that progression over and over again throughout the same series of games, continuing the story for 20 years, it's gonna get crazy. You know what I mean?
How many Final Fantasy games, like different characters, obviously, and like what they are as beings, but how many of them, like, are actually like a go kill God plot.
Everyone.
Yeah,
it's a Japanese storytelling trope, right?
Yeah,
because you'll go every Japanese story will have like an overarching concept, right? Let's use a fairly popular thing, Naruto.
Yeah.
One of the themes is destiny and inevitability. You see the relationship between Naruto and Sasuke happen over and over and over again through different characters, and it always kind of ends in tragedy. So at the end of Naruto, they bring in, hey, this is the person who like created the power system and created ninjas esoterically and all this stuff. We're going to kill her now because she's God. That's how, and you beat the concept. You overcome whatever the conceptual
I was gonna say,
right.
It's a variation of the hero's journey, and like thinking of other like my favorite anime or video games like that play into like Bleach or like Dragon Ball Z has so many different kill God moments.
Yes, exactly.
Like there is something about the hyper popular hero quest journeys from Japanese media that I don't know what it is. This might be worth another like dive later on, but an exploration of overcoming challenges of the self and personal discovery along the journey, penultimately like concluding in some form of defeat over like exactly the source or destiny or whatever has been binding you to the thing.
And I think that's just in the same way that the chosen one narrative is a trope in like European and American storytelling. I think that's the trope of the hero's journey in Japanese storytelling. Right.
No, we have a lot of chosen one hero journeys, but those often enough they don't feel. Sometimes they do, but they don't always feel like Western or European rooted ones. They don't always feel like let's kill God.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I think is a specifically Japanese
like
trait.
There's a big bad. Yeah, there's a big bad in Western culture, but it's not always we're gonna kill God and show him what we think.
Right. Well, and we can get into when you're broken from the like everybody understand I am a Christian when I say this. When you're broken from the like chains of Christianity, you're like, wait, killing God is a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
You're allowed to
you
do that.
can defeat a big bad.
Right.
You just can't cross that far.
all Western stories are built off of Lord of the Rings. I mean, Frodo's journey at the end, he throws the ring into Mount Doom and effectively kills a god, the devil, but still.
No, I think there's a different argument to be made, different video podcast. What are we? Of exactly that kind of twist on its head of hero's journey, archetypes, tropes, recurrent motifs, etc. But yes, this one, it keeps trying to kill multiple god times the same person in 3 ways, 5 ways,
13 ways,
and it's just very confusing after a while. And sometimes you do, even though it's really stupid that you're just doing the movie, you'd rather just play the movie of Tangled rather than deal with whatever the fuck Xehanort's doing.
Sometimes I just want to run around in the forest, swing on Rapunzel's hair like she's fucking Tarzan, and then go dance in a festival, man, because
I love the festival dance minigame. It's so fun.
Because, like, objectively, that stuff is fun, but then you surround it by the madness that is Kingdom Hearts.
Yes.
And you're like, what's happening? Why am I here?
Something that definitely the main games do a lot more than the offshoots, and sometimes here and there in the offshoots, but they really do kind of hit you with mini games that you're either going to love or you're going to hate.
And I think that's another part of the staying power, right? It's why I think, again, in the West, a lot of the staying power of the series and a lot of the broad appeal of the series is the inclusion of hanging out with your favorite Disney properties, fighting with Hercules in a tournament, going to a toy store and running around with Woody and Buzz, running through the Monster Factory, right?
As much as I hate the controls, I love cooking with Remy.
Right.
I love the cooking game so much just because it's Remy.
Yes. So I think that's kind of the answer to the question, how the fuck are these? There are so many of these things.
Yeah.
It's because it's because that whimsicality of properties that you are familiar with, or one of the reasons is that whimsicality with properties that you're familiar with is legit cool. It's really fun.
No, there's a level of, like, I don't want to say nostalgia bait, because there's times that they don't do things that you're like, oh, but that would have been so cool for this world.
Right.
But on the other hand, they're bringing in franchises that's like, oh, of course this works here.
Yes.
Like, of course this is a place where you could do an action adventure quest kind of. Like, I was not expecting Tron, of all things, to get dropped into the second game.
But it works.
And it works so
really well.
When Big Hero 6 came out, people were like, oh man, this would be, because people knew. The other thing is that the mainline games have basically taken years to develop. The second one came out
4 years after the first.
4 years after the first, but that's because there was already development for it. We had to wait almost 15 years for this third game to show up.
The third game in quotation marks, because there were so many games that came out.
Yeah, there were things along the way
that are all canon for reasons.
But for the main installment game, we were waiting like almost 15 years for it. And in that time, people were like, oh man, it'd be so cool if Big Hero 6 was in Kingdom Hearts, and they were drawing fan art and they were doing like fan fiction, like crossover stories. And then it was there. And then it was actually in the game. And it was and Tangled was in there. It was one of those like, oh, this is such a breakthrough animation style. This would work really well adapted into a video game.
And it does. Yeah.
And I have issues with Frozen from the Disney angle, and I felt like playing through that level, there was a different story that was supposed to have been told that Disney went, no, we want to keep this one the most on brand as we can. So we were forced to watch through recreated cutscenes of the same music videos.
By the way, all of Let It Go is in this game. It's like, why is all of Let It Go in this stupid fucking game?
You know that's a licensing agreement that they would not. There's actually a really good game theory, and one of the only game theories about Kingdom Hearts, because God help Matthew Patrick if he ever tries to put the lore of this game in a sensical order. But looking at assets, looking at map layout, looking at the production timeline, Frozen was more than likely supposed to have had a really interesting kind of story about struggling with inner demon, like the light and the darkness. And when you're 13 and you're first playing these games, those sounds like, whoa, big, deep concepts. And then as a 20-something, you go, God, this is so stupid. But that sounded like that was actually, Elsa was a really good character to focus on that like inner turmoil struggle kind of thing. And then Disney went, no, we can't portray our favorite princess queen as possibly a villain. How dare you?
You realize how much money is in Frozen? Fuck you. Don't change it.
Yeah.
Right.
And now they know. Let it go. Let it go. Don't hold it back anymore. Let it go. Let it go. Don't hold it back anymore.
I don't blame you for that part of the game, Nomura. Developers, like I don't blame you on that. That's upholding your end of the bargain to the mouse.
That's why I'm kind of worried about because they've already said, hey, we're gonna make more of these. None of them are in none of them are in production yet, but there are gonna be more.
Yeah.
That's why I'm kind of worried about potential worlds like Moana, Encanto.
Yeah, Moana would fit really well. There's people already making art of like boss battles for Encanto, and it's beautiful, and it looks like it came straight out of concept for the game.
What's the other one? The Dia de los Muertos movie?
Coco.
Right. All of these would fit really well in the Kingdom Hearts format. And
there's also a weird discussion of like Star Wars.
People have been
Marvel?
begging for Star Wars and Marvel properties since those got like I remember those being the first things people said once Disney bought those. They were like, put Spider-Man in Kingdom Hearts, let's go. I personally don't think it would work. I think you can reference those things, maybe have them on like hey, here's a boss battle, go fight the Avengers, and you get a sweet Keyblade out of it.
Yeah. No, and there's a very interesting idea, and especially because now, after all of this madness, and still way, way more unanswered questions and plot holes than I think anyone could have seen coming from this franchise, the goal is to move into like a new chapter, as teased by the secret cutscene and stuff that we've gotten at the end of the third game.
The new character who was introduced as an advertisement for a video game in the Toy Story world,
which is kind of funny.
I'm so angry by it. but yeah,
I think it's kind of metally hysterical, honestly.
The breach of logic shatters my brain because it's like, how, what, huh?
There is certainly a level of like, when people talk about anime being confusing, I think this game is allowed to contend in that category, because at a certain point, the logic that was working for the first 3 games just gets stripped apart entirely by the introduction of something else. And then you're just scrambling to try to pick up the pieces as you're running the rest of the games. But I think, like, and I didn't know if there was any particular games that stuck out to you. One of my favorites, despite the chaos of everything else going on around it, I think my 2 favorite games of the franchise, like, have been Kingdom Hearts 2. I think that was the best balance of story and gameplay and things to do, while still not feeling like you were completely wasting your time. Because as much as I love playing 3, I do agree that it's that, like, we wanted to put all this stuff in here, but man, does it sure feel like we're just wasting time until we get to all the boss battles.
There are several points where they ask Sora, Sora, the main character, what are you doing here? And he literally says, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it happens at like 3 or 4 separate occasions.
Yes. But like, I love Kingdom Hearts 2 because I think that kind of hits the sweet spot of like new things from the first game that we didn't get to do, but like we're still telling a story. And 358 over 2 days. The DS game that was all about Roxas and Shion in their time during Organization 13's kind of scheming while Sora was recovering memories sort of thing.
Are you confused by the names, dear listener? They get worse.
Yeah, oh my God. But that one actually, like, that was one of those first games where I'm like, oh, I like the villains now.
Right.
Why do I like the villains? I mean, not all of them, because I'd still, like, there's some that I can't, no, I don't know, not even, like, care for empathetically, just, like, there's some that I do feel can be redeemed, and I really like where 3 kind of went in to explore that a little bit more, because a lot of people were like, yeah, can we redeem some of them? And 3 went, yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, we can.
They get a sentence right before they die.
Yeah. But no, 358/2 was such a good story in a pocket that I didn't expect us to get to spend like that kind of time with. And I was very glad that we got it going forward, because I think that was honestly a better point of trajectory than like any of the Coded doesn't need to exist. Coded has no purpose. Any of the mobile
358
games
is interesting because in a series of happy-go-lucky parallel Disney stories, that one tells a very tragic story.
Yeah.
And it feels different, and the story it tells is not as off-the-wall bonkers. It's off-the-wall bonkers in how it connects to everything else, but isolated. It's like a very sweet and rather sad story.
It's actually grounded in the relationships of those characters, and especially because you know them only as villains other than Roxas. So it is a very interesting, like, they take this
group of villains who are kind of accented on their whole deal is they don't have emotions, and and then you play as them, and you sit down and you find out, hey, that's not actually true. They all constantly question, why do we exist? And they've come to their own conclusions and their own motivations for existing and doing what they do. And it's very sweet. It's very good.
And if you beat the game and you unlock secrets, you can upgrade everyone's weapons to food items.
And when you beat the game, you get to make everybody fight with food items.
It's such a stupid add-on, but it's so fucking funny to me.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Well, maybe it is stupid, but it's also dumb.
I think something we've floated around over and over again, and I want to talk more about the staying power of these games, is how it is, like we said this at the top, right? For you, it very much so is a gateway to other fandoms, just because of like how it's built and how it's sold off. Like you said, how playing this game opened you up to different fandoms for like Percy Jackson fan fiction and X kind of YouTube videos. For me, it was kind of they kicked open the gates to JRPGs, Japanese RPGs, right?
Ooh,
I played Kingdom Hearts, and then I saw all these like crazy cool looking characters, and I'm like, oh dang, what's that guy from? And then you go to his little lore page. It's like first appeared in Final Fantasy X. Haven't played that. I go play Final Fantasy X. I'm like, this game is awesome. There's 9 other ones of these. Oh man, let me go put hands on those. And then that opened the door. Playing Final Fantasy games opened the door to like my fascination with like anime and Japanese media, and put me even deeper into the Disney hole, right? Where these like really classic Disney films like Beauty and the Beast, which I had not seen before I played through Kingdom Hearts, Nightmare Before Christmas, which was to me at that time the movie trailer that I was too afraid to watch at the beginning of my Hercules VHS as a kid. Because of Kingdom Hearts, I went and watched this movie, right? I think Kingdom Hearts is a gateway, or has been a gateway to so many other fandoms for people, which is why people feel so very, very, very passionately about these games and are willing to die for these games in direct spite of their flaws. You can't be on the internet and say, hey, these games suck, because kids will come after you. They will find where you live and they will come after you.
You freaking pricks! When will you learn? When will you learn that your actions have consequences?
The Final Fantasy thing was one of my best friends. Whenever we slept over, they would be like in the midst of playing through like, oh, what was Final Fantasy 13 had just come out, so they were playing that, or when Dissidia on PSP came out, and they were like informing me about all of that. I'm like, I am so lost, but I'm glad you're having a great time. No, like it just in a weird way became this nexus for like so many other things in fandom culture, be it TV shows, be it games, be it movies. Something about this formula hit the like, this should be too stupid to work, and yet somehow it does.
Somehow it does.
Kind of like, I don't want to say like hyper reality, like kind of like that, kind of camp. I don't know quite the right word I'm looking for, but something about that element speaks to all of these other forms of media that works as a connecting branch. The pinnacle of all of the crossoverness to me was the Smash announcement last year.
Right.
That they had got
Smash and Sora. They got Sora for Smash, something people had been asking for 20 years. Right.
Because of its like, the game series is already a crossover.
Right.
Come on, you've got to do this. And it was like, to see that actually happen, like there was a reason that the internet was
people cried
so much about
people
it.
Cried.
Like, people legit cried over it, and like I did too. I think like I was in shock. I was just sort of like, oh my god, because Disney is so unrelenting. The mouse is unrelenting on its hold on these games. Like they do have outfits for Donald and Goofy. Sometimes they show up at Halloween in specific parks, like maybe it's just Disneyland Paris or maybe just Disneyland California. You find them like only a couple times a year in their Kingdom Hearts garb, but like they don't acknowledge these games that much.
No.
Or at least not until 3. People kept like bringing it up, and they just ignored an entire demographic until like 3. And the Smash announcement subsequently got major attention on social media.
When Sora showed up in the Smash announcement and he had the mouse on his Keyblade, I was like, how? Like, how did they do that?
How did they do this?
Because it's also funny because there's another stage that's pretty famous in the Kingdom Hearts series, and they reference it in Super Smash Brothers, and Donald and Goofy's faces are supposed to be on that stage. But they replace it with a tent and a fruit. And it's like, okay, so the mouse didn't let you have everything.
No, it's the boat.
It's the boat.
It's the freaking boat.
It's the boat and the fruit.
My best friend's boat and starfruit.
So it's like, okay, the mouse didn't let you have everything. Yeah. And you could tell because also a lot of like the best tracks from Kingdom Hearts aren't in Smash Brothers.
There's something else about the staying power of these games that's not just IP and character based, but the original artistry that went into building these games. The stained glass motif that recurs in a lot of the like inner spaces of like, are you made of light? Are you darkness?
When you go basically into the deep dive, dive into somebody's affected, quote unquote, soul. They really do have these beautiful stainless glass towers where they'll be like
they became an iconic feature of the game. Like what was recognizable about this game other than like, oh, it's the Disney characters. It was this artwork. It was this very unique style of representational artistry, and the way that they used like the darkness and shadow and like the heartless features on like it was very original compared to what was kind of floating around.
And then you couple it with the soundtrack. Yes. Kingdom Hearts has some of the best music in video games. It's so good.
I'm still playing through Melody of Memory,
which is a rhythm
that
game.
Came out last year.
Y'all, again, dear listener, hey, I know we've been bitching about the story the entire time. They made a rhythm game for this game, and it's canon to the story.
I don't know of any other franchise that has a rhythm game that's canon, to be honest.
Because it's stupid, Kaylee. Because it's a dumb thing to do.
You got a point there, Bo. You got a point. But it's that level of like, okay, guys, we know that the third game was a little divisive, like gameplay, story-wise. Do you want a game that's just collectibles and music? Fine.
Here you go.
No, like the world music, boss music, emotional beat music, like intros, closing music. Like, oh my god. Utada Hikaru is, I love their work. I love it so much. Their voice is iconic. Or Miss voice is iconic.
Yeah, simple and clean is most possibly one of the greatest pop songs ever created. And the main composer for the game franchise in general, Yoko Shimomura, is a genius. She kills it every time. Even
if because there are some, I'm gonna be honest, I did start playing Birth by Sleep years ago. I never finished that game.
Fair enough.
And I think the only compelling part about that to me now, just looking at it reflectively, is like Aqua's storyline, because that's tragic as shit.
Yeah.
Her and Tara, I'm like, y'all don't deserve this. This hurts.
Mark Hamill is the worst teacher ever.
There were worlds that I did not play through. But playing Melody of Memory and hearing all of these soundtracks, if I just had to look at a list of worlds and hear this music, I could still identify where this came from.
Right.
Like, because there's something in the way that she captures the sound of that world based on iconic music from Disney, as well as just, what does this sound like?
Yeah.
What is this space?
And she's able to not only like create original scores based on the world, like give Agrabah an Arabian theme, at the same time do like these heavy drum jungle beats in the Tarzan world. Every once in a while, you'll hear beats from from songs from those movies, like in the track, which is awesome.
I think Nightmare Before Christmas is one of the few places.
Nightmare Before Christmas is just straight up, this is Halloween.
Yeah, like it's a remaster of This Is Halloween made to be used as video game.
Magical Kingdom
music.
as well from Kingdom Hearts 2 is just straight up the Mickey Mouse March.
Yes.
And it works. It works every time.
Yeah. There is something so charming about the score as it accompanies the story, because the dialogue is not good.
It's bad.
One final thing to just disclaimer is bad. There's some good lines, but the dialogue as a whole is bad unless it is ripped from the Disney movies.
I knew when I met you. You and Kyrie smell the same.
But somehow this music, this underscoring, helps make the cringiest interactions between characters a little more palatable.
No, it's just, the finer points of this series are so messy and jagged, but the
good shit slaps.
The presentation of it and the gameplay for most of the games, and how it's put
Disclaimer,
together.
not all.
Like 4 of them, and how it's put together. Just, I think that's where the series as a whole gets its staying power, and then its ability to bring all of these different things together and not directly ask the user to say, hey, go explore these properties, but just in the way that it's put together kind of leads people to explore properties and go into other things. I think that's I think it's legit fascinating. Yeah. And just how it's persisted over the years. This is the last thing I'll say about this. I don't think Kingdom Hearts is like the progenitor to the crossover game, but I do think the constant success of Kingdom Hearts is one of the leading factors of the crossover game. We already talked about crossover games that predate Kingdom Hearts, Marvel vs. Capcom, the fighting game series, Super Smash Brothers predates it by about 2 years. But then you get deeper into Super Smash Brothers Brawl, where they bring in non-Nintendo characters for the first time, which it was crazy. And we get to games like Soul Calibur, where they're like, also we have Link from Nintendo, and in this one we have Star Wars characters fighting with these swords people.
It's Dante from Devil May Cry.
Right. We have, and now we're at the monster of games like Mortal Kombat, where it's like, yeah, this is Mortal Kombat. You know, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, also Terminator, Rambo, and RoboCop are in this game. What? Yeah, here's Fortnite. Naruto, Ryu from Street Fighter, Rick and Morty, Batman, Thanos, Captain America. They're all in the same game. And it's,
yeah.
I don't think games would have seen the profit in doing all this cross promotional stuff and expanding on so many different fandoms and bringing them together and asking them to look into other fandoms without the success of a game like Kingdom Hearts.
There's still something wholly unique about it. Like, it is not just like, it's a crossover game, but like, there's some wacky, absolutely insane, nonsensical stuff that goes on across all of these games, which, if you ever want to delve further into it, please, for the love of God, just skip Union Cross, skip Coded. You don't need it. The only like out branches that you should be looking at are Chain of Memories, Birth by Sleep, and 358 over 2 days. That's all you need, I promise.
There's 13 of these fuckers. Just play like 4 or 5 of them. That's all you need.
There's remasters if you really like. If you want the authentic experience, I guess good luck finding it for PlayStation 2. But like the remasters will do.
There's so many remasters. They're on
more.
everything. They're on PC now.
Yeah, they're on Switch.
If you want a really bad version, you could cloud stream it to your Switch.
Yeah,
don't do that. Save yourself the trouble.
Please don't. But at the end of the day, like, it is still somehow so derpily charming and wholesome, and somehow makes you cringe at some lines of dialogue, and also just absolutely lose it, whether it's actual tears and emotion or just hysterical laughter, watching Tom Hanks knock off Woody talk down the big bad because he's like, I don't know what you're saying, but leave my friend alone, jackass. Not in those words, but
it's the peak. It just works. It just works.
Give it a try for yourself if you want to delve into such insanity. Good luck.
Good luck. I will say, for the most part, it's a pretty good time.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
I hate it, but
what we had said earlier, kind of like, there's a little something for everybody. There's collectathon, there's weapon crafting and upgrading, there's mini games. It's a good button smasher combo fighter game. That there's a little bit of everything for every kind of game player for this style, for like RPG style. So
it is a little something for everyone.
It's a time. 20 years in the making and still going. So we'll see where it goes next.
Still fucking going.
Nomura, please.
That has been this episode of the Liberal Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yay.
Join us next time as I have a conniption going through the story in chronological order and Kaylee laughs in delight.
It's time to go through the door to darkness, children.
Peace.
The Liberal Artists Podcast premieres every other Thursday on your favourite podcasting platform. The show is hosted by Bodio Papula, Kaylee Horowitz, and Andy Gibson. You can find the show at LibArtistsPod on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks to Whitehot for performing the theme song Reflect, which can be found on freebeats.io. Now, I'm off to go exploring, and maybe, just maybe, I'll find a sheep that I can call my own. Good day.
I'm sure Gibby's very glad that we didn't make him suffer through playthrough or cutscenes of the games.
Correct!